Morning, folks. Phil Gallagher here. In about 3 minutes, the Legacy PTQ is going to be starting up, and I'm going to be recording that today. I'm not going to try to stream because right now there's about 4,000 people watching the SCG tour for some awesome Legacy action, and I don't want to try to compete with that. So I'm playing a slightly different version of a deck list that I've been working on for a little while, and my most recent iteration takes to heart some of the suggestions from Thomas Enevoldsen in his most recent article. I believe that's over on MTG Card Market, question mark. Regardless, you should check it out. It should be pretty easy to find. It's all over Twitter right now. Here's where I was at prior to his article. So prior to his article, I was on 3 Givers, 4 Flicker Wisps, 2 Telmix, and a Cavernous Souls in the main deck. And given the suggestions that he had, I made 2 changes. Well, I guess 3. I cut a Recruiter and a Flicker Wisps for Serra Avengers to further decrease the number of creatures I have that are exposed to Wrenn and 6. And then once I made the change to have like 1 fewer human and 2 more creatures that aren't humans, I cut my Cavernous Souls just for another basic planes. My sideboard is largely the same as it was before, although the Leon and Relic Order seemed worse without a second recruiter. So I just put another recruiter in its spot so that I could get the bullets like Prelate and Jailer and Crusader a little bit more frequently in the spots where they matter. My main deck hedges much more against Delver, so I'm playing the Recruiter in the sideboard to sort of hedge against control. You know, if we kind of like look at this pile, I have 9, maybe even like 11 possible cards that I could board in against like various flavors of control. So I feel pretty good about that. There's some slots that are a little loosey-goosey in the sideboard. I think these slots are all very, very, very locked for me, and I had some amount of debate on these 4 slots, like Leon Relic Order, Pithing Needle, another Rest in Peace, and there was one other card that I was talking about, are all things that could be considered for those slots. And I guess that's enough of a deck tech. We're good to go. This may not be like the most traditional D&T deck list in that like we're cutting a Flicker Wisp and a Recruiter, but it's not all that unconventional. We just kind of have focused on keeping a close eye on our toughness more so than anything else. Alright, so we've won the die roll. That's great. In these bigger events that like actually matter and have real prizes, I always check and see what my opponent has been playing recently. So there was a Legacy Hogak deck, and then a Ramunak Excavator True Name Jace sort of deck. My hand is pretty medium, but Vial is a hell of a drug, and Vial plus Port will give me time to get the rest of this hand functional and online. If the Vial doesn't resolve, my hand is admittedly very weak. So we see Noble Hierarch. It's probably this like Noble Bant list that my opponent has been playing, with a couple of spicy one-ups in there, like Familiar's Ruse and Neoform. So those are things that I should be aware of, but not necessarily something that I'm actively going to play around. This is mighty interesting. I still think it's correct to port, so I just don't get true named, rather than just like ram this Jitte out there. Feeling a little bit medium about D&T going into Atlanta. I feel like the changes that I've made to the deck have made me very, very good against Delver. But I have some degree of fear about people playing with decks that are just a touch older and much better against me. So my opponent has played Volcanic Island, so now I legitimately do not know what they are playing. Recruitering for Thalia seems okay, but exposing the Recruiter to a removal spell here, or not a removal spell, a counter spell here seems bad when I can just wait one turn. So I think we're going to play this one nice and patiently. We'll be porting my opponent off of the Volcanic in their upkeep. Still slightly unsure where exactly my opponent is going to be at on the matchup spectrum. Suppose that will become more clear with time. But my current guess is an alternative build of Rogue Delver that's slightly bigger than the other builds that are going around right now. Maybe with like a main deck Jace rather than a sideboard Jace. Yeah, that's fine. So this is a turn where I should figure out exactly what I want to do before I take any actions. Whatever I go and get with Recruiter, I will cast this turn. I probably want it to be Thalia. So I'll go like Recruiter, cast my Jitte, cast my Thalia. Alternatively, I can Recruiter. Well, I guess let's start here. This is happening no matter what. So I could just get a Flicker Wisp, flicker the Recruiter, and get a rebuy. Could get Thalia and put Jitte in play. I'm still just a little bit afraid of True Name Nemesis coming down because I haven't really given my opponent a great opportunity to go and cast that yet. So getting something like a Stoneforge might play best into that. There's a billion ways to play this turn that are all quite good. It just depends on whether or not my opponent has like Force of Will or Daze. I think I'm going to go ahead and start by playing a Thalia. Not play the Jitte. See if this gets forced. I don't want to expose the Thalia to Daze. I think that matters too much here. I expect the Thalia to get bolted here. But that's totally fine. Nice, nice. Ooh, spell snare. Not bad. Not bad at all. So let's get rid of that. Tap this, put in our jailer. Get rid of the card that's actually threatening here. We won't be attacking with the recruiter. We'll hold that back. I was gonna say, how disgusting of a draw would Swords to Plowshares be? But, man. Force pitching a Spell Pierce there. So my opponent has a true name here. This is slightly inconvenient. But it's not all that bad unless they also have a Daze or Pierce left over for the Batter Skull that I'm going to deploy. So they'll attack, they'll get their Goif back, they'll become the Monarch, but then I'm going to get to crash back for a decent amount. I legitimately think it's better to take the land than to take the recruiter body off the table. It's only punishing if I draw exactly Flicker Wisp, and I think their mana development matters a lot. Since I ported them for a while, wasted them, tried to play Athalia, they're a little behind on where they want to be in terms of spells. Now my opponent's board has gotten much more threatening. And I guess the next question is, how big is this Goif going to be? Four or five. Okay, that's fine. Well, it's not like fine, but you know. It is what it is. So let's move this to my recruiter of the guard, turning it into a 5/5, and conveniently getting it out of Renin 6 range, really effectively giving me another body to work with. See what my opponent decides to do here. They are taking the double block. I think it is more important to remove the Arcanist, because the Arcanist will flash back the Lightning Bolt if I don't get rid of it. I'm still in this one, but it's starting to slip. I'm probably one lightning bolt away from this one being gone. I think if I go to equip Palace Jailer with Battery Skull and my opponent lightning bolts it, the 7 that I take this turn, plus the 7 the following turn, is just going to leave me dead. Alternatively, my opponent may just attack for 6 with Goyf, and then leave True Name back on the defensive. Which I think is better. I don't know the hand. Yeah, there we go. Stoneforge, sword, equip sword. I have enough mana for that exactly. All it will accomplish is getting rid of a noble hierarch this turn. So my opponent will just chump block. And then I'm just going to be dead in 2 hits. So do I just need to play Stoneforge followed by equip Batter Skull? I probably do. This not resolving would hurt a lot. Don't do it. Don't do it. It feels sort of like they legitimately do have the bolt and they're trying to figure out whether or not this equip is actually going to matter. Because if they can somehow answer my sword or keep the sword from resolving in some capacity, it doesn't matter. They can probably just wiggle through, like they can attack with Tarmogoyf, attack for 6, put me to 5. Yeah. So now I don't think I can win. I'm going to take 6 this turn. I'm going to take 7 this turn. I can't gain life on the backswing this turn. If I take the 7 this turn, I can't just like bounce the Stoneforge and block the Tarmogoyf next turn because my opponent will just attack with True Name Nemesis. Although I guess I might need to play towards them messing up. Okay, what does that mean? Does that just mean they have like another True Name Nemesis? This attack makes a lot of sense if they have another True Name because they just like deploy another and then they're just totally safe from what I'm doing. It also makes sense if their two last cards are Ren and 6 plus Lightning Bolt. Because then it just like guarantees lethal right now. They have something to think about, so this isn't guaranteed yet. Okay, so that's interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can equip Batterskull plus Swords to Plowshares something. Potentially my own Stoneforge Mystic. No, that's not going to matter. So I just need to equip this. It needs to get a hit in here, or I am going to die. Now, I'm fine with throwing a removal spell at the Tarmogoyf, right? My opponent can attack me back for 6, ping me for 7. I'm theoretically going to be at 10. So if my opponent has Lightning Bolt, 3, 6, 9, I'm not immediately dead to Lightning Bolt. It would have already happened here, so they don't have Lightning Bolt. Let's try to Swords to Plowshares the Tarmogoyf now. Any number of spells answers that, yep. But we couldn't play that before because like it would have put us in the same spot. Actually, we are dead to Lightning Bolt, theoretically. Because it's still 10 damage. But, like, obviously our opponent didn't have that. So the Tarmogoyf can attack me back. I can get hit for 7, go to 3, a bolt would kill me. I would not block, then hope to play Sword of Fire and Ice, have it resolve, equip it, and get in there. This combination of Ren and 6 plus my opponent having the Monarchy is quite rough. I think that Caracas was more valuable than the Rashadan port there. Like, I clearly can't spend mana porting right now. And I already have 1 Caracas in the graveyard. So I either have 0 or 1 Caracas left in the deck. Minor things, but like it's what I'm thinking about right now. So now a Daze or Spell Pierce or Force of Will are all rough. We take 7, go to 3. See if we resolve this sword and go from there. So we can beat Daze now, but not Pierce or Force. We're going to gain 7 life, go to 10. Presumably my opponent will chump block with a Noble Hierarch. Unless they can deal with this in some other capacity. Okay, can I just attack my opponent here? It's not going to matter because like Noble Hierarch's going to chump either way, but I should think about it. So the attack... Oh shoot, I'm gaining 7, not 10. I was thinking about how much damage I would do. I think I'm supposed to attack them here. It's potentially a 2-turn clock if they don't block. They're going to block, but... Because otherwise, like, I become the Monarch and I get to shock something anyway. And then I'll get to make a decision. Like, theoretically, if it got through, I would get to make a decision about whether or not I wanted to actually hit the Wrenn and 6 or a Noble Hierarch. This is a surprisingly intricate game 1. So now I have to deal with Wrenn and 6 emblem, which is a real problem. But I've at least got some wiggle room in the short term. All right, not much I get to say about that. I guess it's a question of does my opponent have double land left? That's something I could have been tracking. Presumably the answer is yes with that play pattern. That would have been a dead draw. Alright, so what do we want versus my opponent? So normally I board about 6 cards versus these Rug Delver decks, but this one's slightly different. The Path to Exile is going to be slightly less good than normal against them. So I don't want my Revokers. As we saw that game, I don't want my True Name Nemesis. Sanctum Prelate's kind of medium. Flicker Wisp is good in some ways, bad in others. Recruiter's a little slow. So normally I go minus Jailer, minus Recruiter, minus 2 Revokers, minus 1 Recruiter, and then it's often Sanctum Prelate, or maybe like Trim Athalia or something like that. I think Athalias are very good when I'm on the play. or sorry, so it's usually these five, and then plus one of like Flicker Wisp or Thalia, kind of depending on how I'm feeling for another path. Since my opponent is playing a bunch of Noble Hierarchs, I have to consider whether or not like path is great. So normally I go two Rip, two Council Judgment, two Path to Exile, but Council Judgment is going to be better against this build because they're probably like very high on their True Name Nemesis count. I think I'm going to ship like this when I'm on the play, and then when I'm on the draw, I think I'm going to sub out a Thalia for a Path to Exile. We have an unexciting but fine hand. Oh, opponent has mulligan to 5. That makes this hand much, much, much better. On when my opponent is on 5 cards, the combination of like Thalia plus Wasteland might almost instantly take them out of the game. Then again, on 5 cards, they can also still go just like land Hierarch into True Name on turn 2. So I am not going to get cocky yet by any stretch of the imagination. I think I'm going to show them Karak. No, I'm going to show them Wasteland first. If my opponent has their own Wasteland, I don't want my white source to get Wastelanded here. I want to play something that is going to let me hold up the Caracas here. And I want to try to maximally tax removal. So like, to clear my board, my opponent would need something like a Lightning Bolt, which they would use on my Stoneforge Mystic, followed by like a Wrenn and 6 for my Thalia. And even then I would get to bounce this. Slam True Name? Nope. Wrenn and 6. So let's start by playing Tomic. If that resolves, the Wrenn and 6 is much, much less threatening, and it does. Now let's see if we can resolve Vile. We do. Opponent could still have like another Lightning Bolt or find one with a cantrip or something like that. We're not out of the woods. But our hand is relatively good against Wrenn and 6 at this time. And we have something very threatening on the horizon. What What I don't like is that we don't have removal spells, so if my opponent just taps out for something like Dreadhorde Arcanist, the lightning bolt that it threatens is quite bad for me. Oh, get my Caracas, please. Ooh. Oh, no, they actually can't get my Caracas because of Tomic. Alright, so this was sort of the situation I was scared of. So my opponent did forget to just plus their Wrenn in 6. So this is an up 2, so they still could have plussed it. So I'm getting a little lucky there in that regard. Now what? I have this sword for the not-too-distant future. I think I want to play my Thalia and my Avenger, let them get one of them with the Dreadhorde Arcanist attack. And just make their turn more awkward. And if it's the Thalia that dies... Well, would it be the Thalia that dies, though? That's the thing. If I play Thalia and Avenger, they're incentivized to bolt the Avenger so that this gets through. Then I can't actually sword and equip it next turn. Maybe I'm supposed to just play this one more slowly. Like, play the sword this turn, leave Caracas up. If my opponent tries to bounce, or tries to bolt my Tomic, I just bounce it and then rely on my Vial. Yeah, well, you can't have it all. The other sort of nice thing about playing the way that I did is it saves the Sarah Avenger as a surprise. Oh, geez. Saves the Sarah Avenger as a surprise for future turns. And my opponent might attack in with the Arcanist to go and get a card, and then just all of a sudden get slammed by the Avenger popping in. Council Judgment off the top would be such an amazing, amazing draw, by the way. That's great. We should probably start there. Just confirm that this resolves. It should. It really and truly should. Then how do I want to play this? I'll probably just like Legend Rule my own Caracas to just get the maximum amount of creatures out this turn. but that could be greedy. See if this gets spell snared. Does not. I don't think I want to legend roll my own Caracas after thinking about it a little more. Because my opponent's somewhat incentivized to wasteland my Caracas because it's being obnoxious. So I'd rather get the value out of actually playing the second one than take a little bit of a tempo advantage here. That's not bad. Don't have Lightning Bolt as your last card, please. I messed this up. I messed this up. Ugh. Shit. I was supposed to just hold that. Because if they have Bolt, in response to them fetching, I'm supposed to put Thalia in. Oh god, that's a devastating misplay. I'm so upset at myself. And they gave that one to me on a platter when they didn't attack. Or sorry, when they didn't just bolt it in the end step. Now this next thing is going to get to resolve, whatever it is. I guess it should just be the Tomic that they know about. And to potentially keep them from double spelling, I should wasteland them. Oh man, I'm really upset. I could have had that Jace. Could still have a Sarah Avenger. Council Judgment still just an absolutely insane draw. Do I want to play this Crusader out, or do I want to port? I kind of just want to port. No, my opponent also is starting to get into, like, having real concerns with the clock. That was a shuffle with the ponder. So I think I'm okay with dropping my Caracas shields for a turn to play this Crusader. Is that true? If I play the Crusader and they have a Lightning Bolt, I could like Lightning Bolt and bounce. I think I need to put this into play. This is a little loose, but I don't think they have a bolt right now. I feel like if they had a bolt, they could have wiggled in some different ways to make better use of their situation. Stoneforge sword equip. All right, my opponent has conceded for clock there. They're recognizing that they're low on time. So I mostly just want to not die in about the first 3 minutes of the match this time around. So I'll probably board in one, if not both, of my paths. But I really need to watch my creature count, because I'm at 20 now. I've already boarded in a bunch of non-creatures. Thought is less good on the draw. I can board in some paths. I honestly kind of want to play Recruiter against this build. It seems relatively slow, and it seems like I can get to the point where I just like set up Recruiter for Stoneforges. So maybe I'm supposed to just, like, I know this is kind of crazy, but maybe I'm supposed to like get rid of all of my Thalias and then just try to play an endgame deck versus this Delver variant, since they've gone so deep on like the True Name and endgame bomb plan. It's a little weird, but it feels good to me. On the draw specifically. This is going to be a mulligan. I don't want to risk going all in on this hand. Now we're just going to send back the port. So we want my opponent to play a threat rather than a Wrenn and 6 here. I mean, we can still slightly invalidate the Wrenn and 6 with Tomek, but we'd much rather this just be a Tarmogoyf or something. I am going to go ahead and nug this, mostly to just see if I can get a Daze out of their hand. It's going to be Jace on Summon Tomek. Giver of Runes and Stoneforge Mystic are both very interesting here. I kind of just want to get Giver of Runes to put the highest amount of strain on my opponent's ability to close the game. Like, this will allow me to like play some other threat and protect it from Jace. And it'll also make it so some things like Ren and 6 are going to be worse. We're going to play Crusader first to play Crusader around Daze. And we'll play the Giver into Daze. The Giver gets bolted. That's about as expected. I'm not sure exactly how they're expecting to win in 52 seconds if they don't attack with the Tarmogoyf there. Just throwing that out there. I know it's protecting the Jace. And I do get that. But I think the Jace is less important than your clock at this point. My opponent's deck is definitely better suited towards the Death and Taxes matchup than a traditional Delver deck might be. But, you know, here we are. Well, it's not really how I expected to win round one, but we take those. The game probably would have been pretty close if it continued. But I can't see what those cards are. So I'll see you back next round.